Let's head off to the Emirates. Saturday night, Arsenal 1, Brentford 1. Stephen Warnock, it feels a little bit difficult to analyse this game because you can't help but feel it didn't really matter for Arsenal. And I know that they will say they're still fighting until it's impossible against Liverpool, but even Mikel Arteta's team selection probably reflected they've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it? I wonder whether Mikel Arteta might look back in a few weeks and think, I wonder if I'd have played a stronger team against Everton and then also against Brentford and tried to put a little bit more pressure on Liverpool. However, he's decided that the Champions League is the route he wants to take and felt that the Premier League was out of his grasp or out the team's grasp. And would that result against Real Madrid have happened in midweek had he had not rested certain players? So I understand both sides of it completely, but looking at this game, it's all eyes on going to the Bernabéu and trying to make sure that they get that result they need.
I think the point is on that, though, that you just said, could they have put pressure on Liverpool? They could have, but ultimately there's a very, very high percentage chance that it wouldn't have changed what happens come the last day of the season and where the trophies...
Possibly not, but what we saw yesterday at the Golf, pressure gets to everyone, and if you put pressure on Liverpool and you get closer and you can put a little bit more... So if Arsenal had beaten Everton, and we're going down a hypothetical route here, but if they'd have beaten Everton and Liverpool then lose to Fulham, come this game, they then win this game and put pressure on Liverpool going into the West Ham game, the pressure in that game for Liverpool is completely different. So then you might see mistakes start to happen and creep in, and then you might see a different outcome in the game. Everything is fine when we look back at it on paper and go, yeah, but Liverpool won that game. Yeah, but you've changed the situation completely. You've changed the pressure of what's going into that game. So there is that side of things as well.
Do you want to add anything on what we saw in the Golf last night, Sue, or we carry on talking about Arsenal, shall we?
Yeah, carry on talking about
Arsenal. OK, fine. But one of the things, again, for a bit of sympathy towards Mikel Arteta, is that we've probably spent 2 seasons saying you've got to try and give Bukayo Saka a breather, you've got to try and give Martin Odegaard or Declan Rice a rest, that this feels sensible, that you know, Wednesday night against Real Madrid is absolutely... Well, I've seen we said it a load of times this morning, but this is their season, but it is again for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like Stephen said there, before the Everton game, there was a little bit of criticism that he rotated players and they were saying, oh, well, with Liverpool dropping points, was that a chance to actually really put the pressure on them? And then they go and produce that performance midweek and everyone was like, oh, OK. And it's a similar sort of thing. You know, they rotated players, Saka coming back from injury, how key he is. So to keep him fit and making sure that he's available for those big games, similar to Odegaard, and you want all your key players fit and available. And I think Mikel Arteta's just trying to balance that. So, of course, they want to win every game in the Premier League, and you want to go into that Champions League game in good form. But the fact that they got the draw, they were able to rotate, they know exactly what they need to do midweek, you can understand why he's done it.
It's incredible football, isn't it? Because when you think to halfway through the season, everyone had Liverpool as favourites to win the Champions League, thought they'd win everything. Everyone said Paris Saint-Germain won't do anything. They're arguably the best team in the competition. Arsenal, they felt, would win the league. And now they're going down a different route. And suddenly, Arsenal are now favourites to win the Champions League because of that win against Real Madrid.
Are they your favourites?
No, I still think Paris Saint-Germain are the team to beat. And I also think Barcelona are the team to beat as well. I think they'll be, with their forward three and the way that they play. The only thing is they're a little bit more vulnerable. However, I'm going to put a case forward to everyone here. I would not...
I don't think Dortmund are going to win it. We can maybe say that.
No, but I would not want to play Inter Milan. Incredible at the back, organised, defensively solid, in the shape where they sit in, but also got goals in the team as well. So it's going to be brilliant to watch. But Arsenal have put themselves right in the mix with that result in the first leg.
Is the important thing for the second leg, Sue, then, that Arsenal play the game and not Real Madrid's reputation of what they can do in second legs particularly?
Yeah, because I think any other team, if Arsenal were going to play them 3-0 up, you'd go, pretty much they're through, aren't they? But I just think because it's Real Madrid and because the history that they've got in the tournament, because of the players, the manager that they've got, you always think, oh, if they get an early goal, what will happen then? The pressure and things like that. But I just think Arsenal, we know that they can be defensively solid and resilient, and you know, I know obviously missing Gabriel, but they've still got a really good structure off the ball. So you think, keep it tight, keep it compact, work really hard. You know you've got the quality, whether it's through set pieces or whether it's through Saka or Martinelli, whoever's playing in those attacking areas. You know that Real Madrid are going to have to come and they're going to have to go for it. So it will leave spaces on the counter. So it's just how do you approach it, isn't it? That's the
interesting thing, because what they've done is they've gone at Real Madrid and absolutely battered them.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are you going to do in the second leg? Sit back. But that's the mindset, isn't it? We're away from home, so we're going to protect the lead. Often if you sit back and try and protect something, you invite that pressure constantly onto you. But then if you do go a little bit, right, we're going out at them, you leave spaces at the back. But Real Madrid didn't create anything within the game. I think there was an early opportunity for Mbappe when Kivior sort of made a mistake, wasn't there? But apart from that, there wasn't much else within the game that Arsenal were particularly worried about.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, the balancing act, isn't it, that Arsenal have, in that you will know, because you've played in football games, both of you, about momentum, and that if you start in your bunker, it becomes very hard to suddenly clamber out and try and create chances. Now, the other way of looking at it on Wednesday is that Mikel Arteta could say, if we score first, it is done.
And that's the hard thing, isn't it? But I think what you've got to do is, and this is also the difficult situation where, as a manager, you've got to let your players, or hope your players, buy into exactly what your game plan is. So what is it you're going to sell to the players? Is it, we're going to go and kill this game off, and some of the players go, oh, hang about, that leaves spaces for them. Then the other players go, well, we quite like to sit in, and everyone's going, yeah, but you're inviting Real Madrid onto us. So again, you're back to that argument of what you do. But from Arsenal's point of view, they've got to know they can hurt Real Madrid, and they know they can now. My only point is, from the game, is Arsenal might not be clinical enough or aren't clinical enough. So when you think back to that result, we go, incredible. You look at it on paper, 3-0, 2 wonder goals, 2 amazing free kicks. Arsenal missed so many chances in the game. At times they are not clinical enough, and they're going to have to be clinical on the night. With maybe it's one opportunity they get, they might have to take that.
But that is when Stephen was there talking, Sue, about the mentality and worrying that if you attack, you leave in spaces behind. But actually, if you're an elite player, for example, someone like Saka should be saying, give me the ball and I'll hurt them. And if I hurt them once, it could be tie over. And that's, I guess, when the biggest of players step up on nights like that, they don't go back into their shell, even if they're playing Real Madrid away.
No, you're right. And Saka is one of those sort of players, isn't he? I think his target was to get back for that Real Madrid game. And you could see in his press conference before the game, he had a real belief about it. You know, he was like, we can go and we can be successful. He believes in his ability, he believes in the team's ability, and you think he is a player that will shine. We obviously saw Declan Rice step up and be that player in the first leg, but they've got players that can do that. I know obviously Marino's playing in, you know, an unfamiliar role in that number 9 role. He's actually doing a really good job. You know, he's doing the best job that he can. Obviously, it's, you know, that's another debate on who they're going to bring in that position. But he's that focal point. He works really hard. He's trying to get better in that position. So they've certainly got players that can cause Real Madrid problems. They've got that belief because they've already done it. And they've got that defensive resilience, if you like. So it's just how they're going to approach it. It's going to be so fascinating, I think, to watch that.
I think the great thing is when you watch the game back from the previous leg is how they flooded the midfield, how organised they were in that midfield by dropping Marino back into that position. Yeah. Because what you essentially want to do is you don't want the midfielders being creative and feeding Vinicius Junior, Mbappe and Rodrigo. You've got to nullify that threat and stop those balls going in there. That's what they did so well the other day, was had so much control in that middle that they looked comfortable in and out of possession. And that's where you've got to look at the team and go, are they comfortable out of possession? And Arsenal are one of those teams that are.
But the other point I made about the midfield yesterday, Sue, we had Lee Hendry and Darren Ambrose, 2 midfielders on Soccer Sunday, is that the energy as well, that Declan Rice, Partey in the first might not be fit for the second leg, but for all his qualities, Luka Modric is getting old and is not very mobile. And by flooding it, as Steven said, you make Bellingham come backwards, whereas he actually wants to go the other way.
Of course he does that, and we know that they've got options in there that they can change that midfield area, but of course, Modric, we know the qualities that he's got on the ball. But yeah, the legs in midfield of Arsenal, like you said, the way that they flooded that area was a key reason why they went on and won the game. So, yeah, it was certainly a balancing act for Mikel Arteta in terms of resting players, making sure that they have enough game time so that they're ready. And it is just the game plan and seeing how you get over that line. Because, like I say, any other game, any other team that you're playing, when you're 3-0 up, you would say, oh, well, Arsenal are through to the next round. It's just because it's Real Madrid. That's why we're all a little bit too cautious to say that.